Okay. Hi everyone. That's a good one, isn't it? Everyone. There's only the one. So, all know what we talk about. We'll go over it again and again and again until it sinks in. And it will eventually, if you keep recognising it. Can't teach you anything or tell you anything. All I do is point toward and ask you to look to where I'm pointing to see for yourself. And when you realise what we're talking about, what they call non-duality, Advaita, meaning one without a second, only the one, you realise that nobody can tell you anything. Nobody can teach you anything, because who else is there if there's only the one? It's the one essence, patterning, shaping, forming, expressing it as everything. And innately you know it, because I tell you in the great mantra, I am that. And each one of us knows that I am. And we know that everything else is that, because that's a chair, that's the carpet, that's the tree, that's the flower, that's the house, that's the space. Everything is that, which we discriminate with the word or the label. And the word's not the real. Have a look at the word, water. Can you drink it? Can you swim in it? Can you wash in it? You can't. The word fire, does it burn your mouth? Can you cook in it? Can it burn you? You can't do anything with it at all. All these words. So the word's not the real, what it represents. And where did all these words come from? We learnt them. We picked them up along the way. Tells you in the Bible, in the beginning was the Word. That's where it all seemingly begins. The Word was with God, the Word was God. That's all that God is a word, a label. All things were made by Him, by the Word. And there was nothing made that was made without the Word. There's nothing, none of this manifestation whatsoever. It's all got words or labels on it we put on it. Instead of seeing it as it is and everything as that. And how many words were you born with? You realise you weren't born with any words. And you didn't learn any words till you were about 2.5. When the capacity of reasoning developed, we started to reason things out, and that as that little embryo or little baby was growing more, we got those capacities, different things come about on it as it's been growing, the capacity of reasoning. And we've learnt these words. But the trouble is we've taken the word to be the thing, not seeing that words were just labels. And we've taken on these labels. And Nisargadatta tells you what does he tell you? There is only life. There is nobody who lives in life. And he says life lives on life. For out of life more life comes. Now have a look at that. How did you come about? You got all these words. Well, how did you come about that you learned words? And where he says life lives on life and out of life more life comes, you see that as a fact. Because you came from the life of your parents, your mother and your father. And they came from the life of their parents. So life is living on life, and out of life more life is expressing. And it is the one essence, the one life that's patterning, shaping and forming and expressing through all the different patterns. And you are that life. Not the body, not the mind, not the person, not the separate entity or the individual. You are the life itself. And you know that. But we learnt words and taken ourselves to be this person because we've got this idea of a person. Where did that word person come from? It came from the ancient Latin language persona, the mask. So instead of recognising ourselves as the pure intelligence energy or pure awareness or pure life or pure godliness, if you like to use that term, we put all these labels on which discriminated. Christ told you, I am the way, I am the truth, I am the life. People thought he was talking about himself, but he wasn't. He was talking about that sense of presence. That sense of presence, the same sense of presence as you and me and everybody else, that translates as the thought, I am. I am is another word we've learnt for me, or I, me, or this person, me, whatever concept you've got about yourself, the personal concept. So, are you need to see, are you the person? You believe yourself, we've taken ourselves to believe this person and separated ourselves into this personal life. And it's that sense of separation, when it's the one essence appearing and expressing as everything, it's that sense of separation that we divide ourselves with and take ourselves to be something separate or apart from the Absolute. And realise that is the cause of all our psychological problems, the sense of separation. If it's the one essence, if it's the Absolute, what can you add to the Absolute? Nothing whatsoever. What can you take away from it? Nothing whatsoever. It wouldn't be absolute if you could take anything away from it or add anything to it. And so realise that is what you are. I am not the person, I'm not the body, I'm not the mind, I am the Absolute. And if you have a look at that, if you were the Absolute, or if you are the Absolute, recognise that you are that, who could ever be inferior to you? Or who could ever be superior to you? If it's all absolute, nothing to be added to it, nothing to be taken away. And what would you want from the other person? See, now we've got all these concepts and ideas, we're separate with this individual, and he's far better than what I am, or she's not as good, or this or that, or something else. With the discrimination, the separation in words, you're fearful of what the other might do to you. And if it was recognised as your true nature, a lot of these things will drop away. And they'll drop away, but a lot of them will still be there and seen to be what they are, because not everybody recognises. But it could take away a lot of the problems, and it does when you know the truth. And the truth will set you free. That's what the statement is, and it's a fact. They tell you that the false cannot stand up to investigation. And that's how you can recognise the truth, see the truth, nor know the truth, by recognising the false. And seeing it. And you take away all these things that you investigate, you're taken to believe are real, and through the investigation they fall away, and you're left with the truth. And that's where the freedom is. That's where the peace is. And joy. They're aspects of the way this life expresses or manifests. And you'll never get peace of mind. The mind can never be at peace. And I know that they tell you in the Bible. The peace, they call it the peace that passes all understanding. What does that imply, I'll tell you? They're telling you it can't be understood or grasped with a concept, with a thought. It passes all understanding. And you know that peace. You've had glimpses of it when there was natural peace there. So the peace is when the mind is not. So recognise that, know it, test it out. Let the thoughts go right now, don't take a thought up. And what's wrong with right now if you don't think about it? Well, if you get the taste of it, you can't say there's anything right or anything wrong. And in that peace, there is a sense of well-being. You get the taste of your natural state. Natural state is as it is in nature. Have a look in nature and get the taste of it there. And you'll see in nature the earth rolling around the sun, seasons coming and going, tides coming in and out, galaxies forming, changing. It's all going on out there. And it's the same intelligence energy that's breathing you right now, making you breathe, causing your heart to beat, growing hair in the fingernails, digesting your food. It's the one essence, the one life that's doing everything. Everything is, that's patterning, shaping, forming and everything. As that one essence. The one appears now as many. And we take the many to be separate and apart. So when they say it's one without a second, it's non-dual, they're telling you it's indivisible and it's inseparable. It's just the one essence. You can't separate it, you can't divide it. We've taken on these words and these beliefs, and what are we doing? We're separating the indivisible, separate the inseparable, and dividing the indivisible. And that's the very thing that is the cause of all our problems. And so if that's not going on, it's going to remain as it is in its inseparableness and its indivisibleness. But now we've got this concept of me, this person, this separate entity, this individual. And which is labelled I, or me, when we learn words. Now the first couple of years of your life you didn't have any words, because the capacity of reasoning hadn't developed. That's why you can't remember your birth. People say, I was born, but everyone that says I was born, there's no one that can remember your birth, though people will say they do. Remember, they put a concept on it or an idea. It's not actually remembering it. And so you don't know anything about your birth till that capacity of reasoning develops, and then you say, I am whatever your parents passing around you, teach you words, what words, you learn words from them, they put this label on you, whatever you've been christened, whatever your name is, I am so-and-so. And Nisargadatta says, stay with the I-am-ness. People think, I've got to repeat that word or remind myself that I am. They're not talking about that. It's not that at all. What he's talking about is, what is that I-am-ness? Have a look. See what it is. And realise it's not this body, it's not this mind, it's the sense of presence. Everybody is aware of being present right now. It's that sense of being, knowing and loving to be. The awareness of presence translates as the thought, I am. But instead of translating the thought, I am absolute, I am the great perfection, we translate it, I am this person. I am this separate entity. I am this individual. And so we're creating a lot of fears, anxiety, depression, guilt, shame, remorse, all the psychological problems come about from that sense of separation. And look at it, it's only me that can be unhappy. It's only me that can be fearful, only me that can be anxious. Because if it's the absolute, all these things are absolute also. If there's such a thing as fear, depression, guilt, shame, everything is absolute. You can't take away from the absolute anything. And they all are that absolute. But now we've got this belief we're separate, and we're taking them on board as a separate entity. And this is the cause of all our suffering, all our fear, all our anger, all our depression, guilt, shame, all applies to this idea of me, an individual, a person. And me is the cause of the anxiety, the fear, the unhappiness, depression. And the anxiety, the fear, the unhappiness, depression, the psychological suffering are the effects of the cause. And that's cause and effect. Isn't that what so-called karma is? Cause and effect. What happens if you ask yourself the simple question, can there be an effect if I'm not relating to a cause? Well, that's something you have to look at and work out for yourself. I can tell you that, but unless you test it out for yourself, you're not going to take much notice of it. But when you test it out and see that there can't be an effect if it's not related to a cause, because it's not separated, it's still the absolute. So recognise that the so-called karma, cause and effect, is just a conceptualizing of the pure functioning that's going on, the sense of separation. You'll be free of all the so-called karma. How does it work? We'll have a look. Something comes up in your everyday life and you like it. Thoughts will come up all the time and things like that. Thinking's happening, feeling. Something comes up, you like it. How do you know? Well, I've had this experience before and it's a good experience. I like it and I want to keep it. But we don't want the things we like to go away, not realising that everything in this manifestation, I mean everything, is transient. It's constantly changing. This body that you believe you are is changing right now. There's not one, but there are hundreds or thousands of cells dying in it right at this moment and being replaced. We don't realise that. We think we got this body that's going to last so and so, but it's constantly changing. It's not the same body you woke up with this morning that was there last night, or it's not the same body as it was a few moments ago. It's changing all the time. So it's transient. So, but when these good thoughts come up, we want to keep them there. We don't want them to go because you know at the other end of the scale, what we're told, it'll be bad. That's how it functions, a vibration, good, bad, pleasant, painful, happy, sad, loving, hating, through the thinking. Shakespeare told you that 400 years ago. Nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. We put the division on it. So we're into this psychological problem. But what I need to do if the good things, we want the good things to stay there, not realising that they're transient and they're bound to change. We don't want the good things to change because we know that the opposite of the good things will be the bad things. That's how it's been functioning. We don't want the bad things, so we want the good things, so we try to keep it there. And trying to keep it there to something that's transient, what do you got to do? You need to resist it. We don't need to, but that's what happens, sadly. We resist it, trying to keep it there, trying to hang on to it, not realising no matter how much you love it, how much you want to keep it there, it's bound to change, it's going to change somehow or other. But realise what you're doing to yourself. With that resistance comes conflict. You're fighting with yourself to try to keep it there. And conflict makes you fearful, anxious, depressed, guilty, uneasy. That's the conflict that goes on. Anxiety, stress, unhappiness. Resistance is conflict. And conflict makes you unhappy with all these feelings coming up. Makes you uneasy, unhappy. And another word for uneasiness is dis-ease. So there's resistance, conflict and dis-ease in us from this point of view. Constantly transient, constantly changing. And goes to the other end of the scale. Something comes up that I don't like at the upper end of the scale. I don't want this. This is good, not good. I shouldn't be thinking like this. It's a bad thought. I've got to get rid of this. Again, what do? Conflict. We resist it. We resist it. Again, conflict. Again, disease. So that's what our life is composed of. Mainly resistance, conflict, and unhappiness, disease, anxiety, stress, guilt. All the psychological sufferings are there. But we get tastes of the in-between every now and again. Every one of us have had tastes of it. Everything has fallen into place, and we thought, well, this is right, this is how it should be. But then we go into some other concept or start another story, and we're back into the conflict again. And this cause and effect is what they call karma. And if you look at it and see that what is relating to it, the conceptual idea of me is a concept, and you're not a concept, and there's no concept, there's no relation.
I'm not calling you on, please.
So you can be free of these concepts, and you can be free of relativity. When you look at the thinking, we think when the bad thought comes up, or the unhappy thought, or the opposite comes up, we think it's separate, good and the bad. But it hasn't separated. It's full thinking is two ends of the one stick, I call it. Every stick's got two ends to it. Two sides of the one coin. Every coin's got two sides to it. But it's still the same stick. It's still the same coin. But we take it as being separate. And we've divided ourselves because of that into the me that's having these things and the not me that feels good or bad, whatever's taken. That division is going on. And if you recognise that the thinking is the two ends of the one stick, and the bad end will go away if left as it is. It'll move on like everything is changing. It's transient. And the good will come around again. But look at the way it is now with us. We're more into the so-called bad thinking because we're reinforcing it constantly. And the periods of when everything falls into place are seemingly less and less. So we've lost sight of our true nature. But in the recognising to recognising your true nature, it'll even itself up. When there's less conceptualising going on, less story going on around it, when you settle into the pure, basic presence awareness, the knowing that you are, you'll get a taste of that clarity, that clearness. I could use the analogy of the sun. When the clouds are covering the sun, you can't see the sun. There's that many clouds covering it. Same here, when there's that many thoughts in your head, you don't recognise the life essence behind it all, though it's there. It's there in its fullness, but it's seemingly obscured by the noise, the vibration, the sound. That's all that thoughts are: words, sound, vibration, energy. And we're obscuring our true nature with that energy. So when you recognise that how the clouds are formed, that the sun itself with its radiance evaporates water and forms a cloud that will obscure it. See, that's what's going on here too. That pure life essence that you are, not recognised, and the clouds of thoughts, concepts and ideas have obscured it. We've lost sight of our true nature. But realise the sun in its radiance will blow the cloud away. That innate intelligence energy, that pure awareness, if you settle back into it as much as possible, that'll blow the clouds of thoughts away. The thoughts will disperse. And there'll be more clarity there, more awareness, a sense of well-beingness. As Nisargadatta puts it, being well or nothing wrong anymore. There's a recognising that cognising emptiness that you are. It's the emptiness that's forming and patterning all these shapes and forms. They call it a cognising emptiness, a knowing emptiness. And the Buddha told you that emptiness is form, pointing out that all this manifestation is made up, it's empty, and it's made up of the forms that are in it. And the forms are nothing but the emptiness. So pointing out clearly that it's all the one absolute essence that's vibrating, patterning, shaping and forming and all this expressing. And the great mantra is, I am that. You are that. Thou art that. This is that. Everything is that. Which we put words on and discriminate and take away the thatness when we put the labels on it. Instead of now, I am that, I am Bob, the human being. I am the separate entity. I am the individual. I am the person.
Are you now?
So, there you are. Only that. That is all there is. And you know that innately. Because you realise, you look around you and say, oh, that's the chair I'm sitting in. That's the room I'm in. That's the space that's in the room. That's the tree. That's the flower. Everything is that. You know it innately, but we discriminate it with the words and separate it. So all it is a matter of relaxing back into your true nature. Relaxing, it's not a matter of going back, because you'll never go back, but relaxing into what you are. You are the absolute. Nothing can be added to the absolute. Nothing can be taken away from it. But you can't discriminate or know anything apart from it. Unless if we hadn't learnt these words, it wouldn't be so. And it forms patterns, shapes and forms to express through. In its absoluteness, with nothing added to it, nothing taken away, it's going to be pretty boring. So it firmly forms all these pattern shapes and forms to separate itself and express as and enjoy them. But instead of enjoying them, we put the labels on, and because we don't know, when we put the labels on, don't know what it is, when we first learn to reason and look out there and your parents tell you, little Johnny or little Billy, look out there, that doesn't fit little Billy, I don't know what it is. With that comes a sense of insecurity and vulnerability, because you don't recognise it as that, and nobody's told you it was that at that stage, and you learnt the words instead. We've learnt these words and suffer accordingly from the words. So it expresses as these patterns, shapes and forms, but it all appears in that basic screen. The basic screen in which everything appears on in is space. And you are and I and are in space, aren't we? Isn't this room full of space? And isn't that space everywhere? And go out and look into space and see if you can find a centre to space. Or can you postulate or think of a centre to space? A place where space begins. And you realise you can't think of a space where space begins. What would it begin in? It would have to begin in space, wouldn't it? If there's any other planets or any life or any other forms, what do they appear in? Is there something other that they could appear in other than the space? So, space is no thing. You can't find a centre to it, you can't find a boundary to it. You can't find a beginning or an end. It's no thing. Hasn't got any shape, it doesn't have a boundary to it. Hasn't got any form. It have a shape and form of body-mind, like the body-mind's the shapes and form. It hasn't got any of that. Space is no thing. But you can't postulate or think of anything at all that can be outside of space. What would it be in? It'll all have to be in space. So, if everything is the content of space, and space is no thing, can something come from no thing? Well, you realise it can't. Because if it's appearing in the content of space, space is no thing, what can the content be? Can't be any other thing other than space itself also. So it's no thing. But we say nothing, thinking it's a vacuum, zero or void. But just what no thing means, it just hasn't got any shape or form. But it appears to be so. And Buddha told you when form is emptiness, it's emptiness that's forming all these things, that's space-like awareness, and the emptiness is form. It's the emptiness that's forming all these things, and the form's nothing but the emptiness, pointing out it's still only the one essence. But we still take on that sense of separation. Oh yeah, that's a good one, we heard that, but I'm still this and still that, and the world's still going on around me and all the things are happening. So we miss out on our life because of that belief in the separate entity, the individual, the person. But in the recognition that the person, the pattern, shape and form, the body, mind, are nothing but this space-like awareness. What's it all, that space and everything else is forming in awareness? You can't say what awareness is. It is no thing. All you can do is recognise that right here, right now, you are not unaware. You are aware, no matter what appears or comes upon it, you're aware of all these things. And you are not unaware, so you are that awareness itself, which is no thing. And they call it a phenomenal manifestation. The whole manifestation is made up of phenomena. And the definition of phenomena is that which appears to be. So you and I and everything in this room and everything outside in the world are no thing, forming as things. They call it Shiva Shakti in Hinduism. Shiva is the static absolute, the no thing, the one Atman, self, the one God. Shakti is the semi-concept, the vibrating pattern of energy. They say depicted as his consort. Shakti dances and the world appears. In other words, she vibrates. That dance is a vibration, a movement, an activity. And the world appears. And you and I are vibrating patterns of that life essence. So is everything else in it, vibrating patterns of Shiva Shakti. So we see then, get a glimpse of your true nature. You are that pure intelligence energy, what I call intelligence energy or awareness. You are that pure activity of knowing. And you are that Sat Chit Ananda, the being, knowing, loving to be of the Hindus. You are that God of the Christians, the Jews and everybody else. You are that Buddha of the Buddhists or everything else. Everything is that, vibrating into different patterns, shapes and forms. And the problem is we believe still that we are separate, a person. Investigate and see for yourself and settle back into your natural state and see the changes which occur, which appear. See what happens then. Test it out and do what they say. Know the truth and the truth will set you free. What are you free from? Free from the belief that you are this individual. You are this separate entity that believes it can, if it tries hard enough, become real. But realise it can, being can never be becoming, because becoming implies a future time. And this presence awareness is omnipresence, it's total presence, it's the one self, it's the one Atman, it's omnipotence, it's the total power, it's omniscience, it's the total intelligence. And that is all there is. And you are that. Be what you are. And it's not that difficult at all. A little bit of it. So away you go. Get into it. Get into it.
I have a couple of comments to read. Hi everyone, who is 25 people with us at the moment, and we have few welcoming messages. And then I-am-ness says, I am is I am. I am not I am. And by the way, just before I forget, especially for people who are in Americas, there is a Zoom meeting Sunday night for you. Just check the website silerbobadamson.com for the details and tune in if you like. And I just remember, thank you Amarnath for being here and reminding me. He's a part of the group.
Yeah.
And British Julia says, the clouds have been blown away once again. So much gratitude to you, Bob and Kat. That's wonderful to hear. And that's again as a reminder, if anyone needs an individual call with Bob or with both of us, just do what Julia did and get your clouds dispersed. And details again on the website. And it doesn't cost anything. It's reappearing in your dreams, so use it. Tanya says, is the body and world not real? Thoughts can't understand or accept them, that, laughing out loud. Or is it just that they are not what the thought says they are?
Yeah.
That word is not the thing, so there is no body or world. Those appearances don't appear with labels on them. Brilliant.
Yeah. You want that pure awareness.
Yeah. They real in their essence, but not in the way they show up. They show up as a mirage, but the essence is one. Amarnath says, beautiful, thanks a million. We identified sky as cloud knowledge, as ignorance as knowledge, cloud learned ignorance as sky. And Mirella answering to Tanya, animals can see things, humans can't. So the world we see is a limitation of the body. Yes, and that includes animals' body too. They also see through the filter. Like if you put rose-colored glasses, you see different world. You see through different conditioning. Eagles or foxes, they also have their own different lenses. Amarnath says, only cost of the meeting is surrendering our ego, if that happens.
So we don't realise ego doesn't exist. Doesn't exist. Mind doesn't exist. There's no such thing as mind apart from thoughts. The ego is just a conceptual image we have about ourselves. And there have been millions of autopsies done, but nobody's ever dug a mind out when they're doing an autopsy. And more or less, nobody's ever dug an ego out either, or a soul. Yes. None of these things. But the conceptual images we put on, we take the word or the image to be real and believe it.
And everyone may have different definition of what the ego is,
yeah.
or what the mind is, or even what the thought is. Yeah. For some people, impulses to act are thoughts. For other people, only verbal thoughts are thought. For other images, mental images, also included in the definition.
And thought's not the enemy. It can be very useful, but it's self-destructive if you haven't recognised or understood.
Yeah. But making an assumption, like first created some sort of a concept and then assuming that everyone is on the same page with that concept and going for a war with people who may absolutely have the same sort of an instinct or feeling, but different definition of the term. For one person, ego is a sense of personal power, so-called, of the body. For someone else, it is an identification with the personality pattern. For yet someone else, it is a chakra somewhere there. It's just so many different concepts around it, and which concept is right? And what are the concepts after all? They just convention. Symbolic language means the substitute of reality by a symbol, agreed upon. By who? If people have different concepts and they don't really agree, and they can't, because we are using the imagination to communicate, and assumption and projection too. That's how the machine works. But knowing how the machine works, we can just see through, and that's the invitation, to just see through how the perception happens, how the perception is overlaid with that interpretation and projection. And don't get fooled by it. When you see that this is the mechanical way, this is the limitation of the machinery, like Mirella was saying, just let it do what it does, but know better. I see there is one more comment here. Tanya says, thank you, Bobcat and Mirella. There is only the one essence, without words or concepts, no me or separation. Beautiful. And Ram says, recognize that the body-mind is a tiny speck of phenomena appearing in infinite being, timeless awareness. Beautiful. Yeah. And now would any one of you would like to chip in and ask question or share the insight or just rumble? We have another mic, so we don't have to disconnect Bob anymore. Just yeah, Matthew, did you want to say something?
No, not particularly.
Oh no. Oh, Peter, please.
No, I don't say anything.
Okay,
Jazzy.
Yeah, actually I have more like a question. So, or confusion or whatever you say it. So, for example, natural attraction or attracting to things or human beings, female, male. That to me understanding that is a natural natural state. Yeah, okay, sorry. A natural state that happens. Now, understanding that in our society we have marriage and relationships and all these things. So, that is a concept, is it? Because I'm a bit confused, because if there's natural attraction happens to other human beings, but that might have to different human beings happening, and in a relationship or whatever, marriage or whatever is there a certain way of, I don't know how you call it, I don't know how you call the word in English. That you will be honest to a partner, that's one thing, but also there's a concept of you staying in a relationship and not act on an attraction, for example. So I confused in what the natural state is, and if that what a marriage or relationship is a concept. Oh yeah, basically that came up.
Would you like to comment on Shalene? No?
Hey, Joe.
Catherine? Yeah.
I don't know if I'm answering your question, but I think what's important is that, you know, we'll naturally behave, but I think what's important to see is that there's that natural knowingness that will operate in our lives, but then the thoughts are just expressions of that natural knowingness, and I think we're not shown that, you know, we're not shown the actuality of that thoughts are just a superimposition on what's already a natural knowingness. We're not taught that, we're not shown that. So however we behave is the way we behave, but thought then overlays naturally. It interprets what's happening, which Bob's saying is not a bad thing. It's only when it's associated with, in a psychological way, as an identity of who we think we are, that the problem or the conflict arises. So thought in itself is not the problem, and it'll direct. Well, I don't know if it really directs or does anything, because things are already known. There's already that awareness that is cognizing. It's aware, and it has a sense of knowing already imbibed in it. But then thought is the expression that comes in, and that's what trips us up. Is thinking that those thoughts are in control, and then the thought appears as a subject and an object, and when we're not actually shown that there's something prior to thought. that already knows what to do and what everything is. So there's not really a conflict there as long as that's kind of seen clearly, which takes a bit of investigation to see that clearly, that prior to thought there's already awareness and cognizing happening. And that's the reality, that's the actuality. That's kind of...
What do you hold it right out there for?
Pardon? I don't know. Why.
Well, bring it.
Hold it closer to your mouth.
Closer to my mouth, sorry.
Yes.
Anyway, that's one thing.
I just want to add to that because I feel like that I just like sparked this memory of maybe 10 years ago before I'd gotten interested in this, but I was interested in trying to figure out something. And I was reading this book on psychology talking about tracking like where the neurons fire in your brain, and they're saying when someone goes to take an action or someone takes action on you, the part of your brain that directs action fires off first, and then the part of your brain in the frontal cortex that creates thought fires off second. So the action happens and then the thought comes in, literally in order to explain to you why you did it. And when I read this, I could not reconcile that, because it just kind of shook my world, the idea that the thoughts happen after the action, after the behavior. And then discovering this teaching, it just kind of sunk in that it's not like a theoretical, the thoughts are separate. It's like a literal physical fact that the thoughts are come in after to describe what we're already doing, what we're already being, or what we already know. Like it's like there's something else acting, and then there's this part of the brain that comes in and says, oh, I did that because of this and because of that. But it's just like literally true that the acting is happening, and then we describe it after the fact and think that the description is the truth or something. I don't know. But that thought just popped in, and it just kind of became clear all of a sudden that I reconciled something from 10 years ago that didn't make sense.
I can't hear that hardly.
Well, take your ears off.
Yeah,
Should be able to
Joseph,
hear it better with it.
before you presented us with those ideas, you must have had a sense of self which is perfect. In other words, life was brought to this occasion. Life, the essence of life was brought to your to this moment, right? That life essence is who you are, not the cognizing, the thought processes after that. And that's very beautiful, I see you sit there and I see that life essence working in you, grabbing that idea and thinking about it, and whatever it was, Doesn't matter what the ideas are, you see. Doesn't matter at all. It matters not a scrap at all what the ideas are. The only thing that matters is just simply the recognition of the exquisite nature of yourself as life. That's all that matters. Yeah, right? It's a very beautiful thing. You're a very beautiful apparition, if you like, in my so-called dream. Yeah. Now, that's an interesting question. Is there only one? Is there only me here? Yeah. Is there only me? Who is me? It's this is a very this is the fundamental basis of the whole thing, isn't it? Is there a me or not? And if there's no me here doing this, acting and doing this, then what's happening? Right? Then there is only the action of it. There's only the exquisite action, the life, the life presenting itself now. Very, very beautiful thing. And interesting. What you say, Lockie? It's actually you look at that would be better. Yeah. the whole of the single hemisphere, the brain is one, I don't know which one it is dedicated to finding the context in which all these actions take place. And it doesn't really matter what it chooses. It will choose anything it like. Just from that sort of perspective, whatever context works, will work. So it doesn't matter. That's in that sense. There's no reality in the thoughts at all. None at all. They're just an apparition. Just a field of view in which you see this self that I am expressing as the essence of life, making sense of how it functions here in this time-space continuum that I've made up in my own mind in its entirety. There's a mind-boggling simplicity and mind-boggling complexity at the same time. So just give up and be here and be happy.
Lindsay. Yeah.
Thank you. I heard a question from what you said, which is marriage, is attraction, is all of that a concept?
Speak up, Lindsay.
Oh, shall I come closer? Or?
Yeah. I can't hear.
So the question I heard you say, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Is marriage, is attraction between two beings a concept? Yes, it is a concept. When you are, when you have split into the belief that who you are is a person, then you're in that field of opposites, of self and other, of marriage and divorce, of being single or being together. There's nothing wrong with that. But for me, what it highlights when I hear you speak is that the fundamental recognition of the truth of who you are has not been recognized. And when that fundamental truth is recognized, then all of that doesn't matter. Because it's just thought. And thought, there's nothing wrong with thought. It's part of the human experience for thought to be there. It's an expression in conscious awareness. It's the creative potential. It's how the world comes into being. It's beautiful. But it's when that fundamental belief that I am fill in the blank, which I am Lindsay, I am, it is like that step away from that. Yeah.
Yes, what is it without the word, without the idea, without the concept or the question, whether it is a concept or not? So what is it without that?
Energy.
Yeah. I got a couple of comments from people who are with us. Oh yeah, I'll keep it. And so, Amana says, language of silence and love do not have words, love and silence. And Ram says, to trade in that timeless awareness for phenomena is the birth of ignorance, illusion and suffering, Maya. And JB says, nice comment, knowing before thought happens. So simple it is missed. And Kathleen says, ego can't actually be found and no finder to boot. I'll also say what everybody already answered to you, Joseph, but because there is occasionally people come here and just kind of sneak a peek what that non-duality is about, what the moral stance of the non-duality is, what that particular religion has to say to you, because you go to Christianity and they tell you about being monogamous, don't ever be attracted to the same sex and all the other stuff that they tell you. You go to the Muslim religion and they tell you, no, you can have up to 4 wives, and that's what, every society will have different concept of how you should live your life. Non-duality doesn't use any should, because there is no you to follow the should. So I just found some reviews of the book that I put together on the Amazon, and one of the reviews was saying that I didn't address ethical or moral issues in the book, which was a downside. And again, what non-duality essentially is about, it doesn't tell you how to live your life, because the basic understanding is you are not living your life. Life is living you. So life is conditioning you the way, so you're attracted to, let's say, same sex, or that you are, it may be a conditioning on the level of pregnancy of the mother. I don't say it is a social thing, or it is just a collective of the influences, or that you are polygamous by nature, or that whatever else it is, life has already expressed through you, as you, with those perceptions or with those behaviors. Now, overlay of the cultural or social conditioning brings the interpretation, like Lucky was saying, of this famous Libet experiment, where actually experiment repeated in multiple universities and is undoubtedly showing that the narrative comes about half a second after the action. So if that conditioning will now tell you that you are a sinner because the attraction goes towards more than one woman, and who knows, that's part of the way life expresses its own story. You may go to addiction because of that. You may suffer intensely. Your suffering may end up putting you to jail and your mother in despair. And somewhere in the ripple effect, consciousness will even it up, because others will learn from interacting with you. Or perhaps you will have the clarity that whatever the thought is saying is just a thought saying, and the body is behaving as it has been conditioned. And it doesn't mean that we at the same time say that, okay, go away, do whatever you want, you're free to go and kill and rape and so on, because that you can't do either, because there is no you to be free to go and kill and rape. And we often show that when you are experiencing a sense of love and fulfillment and completeness, you don't feel that lack anymore. You don't feel that you are deficient, poor little me who need to fix itself. Any urge to compete, to prove someone wrong, to steal from someone, to hurt someone, dissipates, because all of those urges come from the insufficiency, and self-centeredness come from that sense of unworthiness and the inner void that you need to complete. Why would you need to steal from someone if you're free from desires? So the moral aspect of non-duality is self-evident when the clarity comes about. And it is not immediate, because the clarity may show up in glimpses, and then the old conditioning of hurting others still persists. Or the clarity may come up in one big blast, but the reconditioning of the body-mind machinery also may need some time to settle. It is fresh and new in every situation, in every story, how it appears. But if you are kind of looking for non-duality stance or opinion, what should I do in situation, or what is advisable, you won't find it here. Because we don't work with the overlay of the conditioning, social conditioning, or precepts, or like the religions, we go beyond to find the truth and rest in that uncontrived singularity of the truth, where you are not your body-mind anymore, and the action of the body-mind is secondary to the recognition that you are that conscious awareness of space. From that conscious awareness of space, actions of the body are less personal, so they are less loaded with that self-judgment, self-hatred, guilt, and by that they obviously less harmful, they less loaded, less charged. And if you find yourself cheating on your partner, well, you find yourself cheating on your partner, but who you are is the space-like awareness, and a body acting out from whatever concepts or conditioning. Sometimes it's the concept, sometimes it's the conditioning, which, well, they kind of two aspects of the same thing.
And I think, the natural, watch the water. Without so much thought in mind, the limitations of the mind are dropped more, so that allows for more warmth and love and a more openness to another person, because it's only our thoughts that limit our perceptions and our judgments coming in. It's all about thought, isn't it? And the way I think and what I feel, it's all about a me, whereas without the limitations of thoughts, the conflict subsides, and then there's more openness to so-called others. Because, we're not taught to deal with conflict in our lives as a society. So this is kind of really a way that allows us to deal more openly with so-called conflicting situations, because you don't have to hold a stance about who you are and what you think.
Would you like to go on a date? Just kidding. It's all right. I was just thinking that what we perceive, we don't perceive anything at all about reality. Nothing at all. It's not. What you think you see is not what reality, in inverted commas, is. It's like if you apply, from a scientific perspective, you apply games theory to ecological scenarios, you find that animals are...
Can you hear?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Can't hear me enough? I'll try and speak up. That animals are including humans, are not selected according to seeing the truth. It seems ridiculous, doesn't it? But the more that animals are, including humans, are see the things according to their natural fitness. Fitness to me being the ability to reproduce, right? Is by far and away the greatest, according to games theory at least, is the driver of what we perceive. So when you're in a situation where you feel attracted to somebody, you are probably seeing you're closer to a representation of fitness rather than a sexual or reproductive fitness, rather than a situation of reality. Do you understand what I'm saying? So, yeah, it's kind of, from that perspective, it's an interesting ball game.
Oh, please,
Yeah.
I love what you just said. And it, can you hear me, Bob?
Yeah, now.
Yeah, cool. And then, like, when you understand, like, that the essence of who you are. Oh, thank you. The essence of who you are is that which is. Then the experience of the attraction, when it is just the experience itself, it's just this expansion and contraction experience almost. Like if it's, I don't know, it's hard to put it into words, but the visual that kind of comes is there's a movement in consciousness, which if one doesn't actually, if thinking doesn't arise and look back in on itself to say, I am feeling attracted to that person. Let's say the story just doesn't arise. And there is just the remaining in the experience itself. Then it's almost like the essence of love, whatever word you want to call it. There are no words actually, but the essence of the truth of the reality of who you are. When there's no limitation, there's no external construct to limit that expression, then it will move you. It will move the body-mind. It will, like that. And there will be a movement toward or away. And let's just say there was no thinking capacity. There was no single movement away from the truth of who you are, the reality of who you are. Then there might be a coming and emerging together with another body-mind as the presence, as the awareness itself. And so everything that arises in thought after the fact, which is just what everyone's kind of been pointing to, is just the narrative for the purpose of communication between body-minds. But the communication between body-minds doesn't need thought to communicate. So, yeah, it's fascinating. Yeah.
Maybe it's like coming to that analogy of the clouds. It's like the movement of the clouds, but it's who you truly are is much deeper and vaster than that.
That'll do. Say a bit more about vast.
Okay. Well, the idea of attraction is the issue is one is thinking there's attraction and the other thinking there isn't, and this is where there's, these challenges in life that come up, or conflict, or ideas, and when one's caught in that realm of ideas and thoughts and this person, that person, and attraction, relationships, these sorts of things, then you're caught in the world, in the idea of the world, which is created through thought. But without thought, what is there? Without the story, without the idea of us and them, me and you. See, that is all just an idea. So without that, there's the vastness without, which can't be named. But so much is someone is trying to name it this or that, but without it being named, that it is just that.
Mm.
Yeah, beautiful. Did you want to say something, Bob? No, you don't need to.
Go on.
I have to say something.
Oh yeah, go.
What do I have to say?
Yeah, you.
It's a lovely meeting. Everyone's contributing some wonderful things, and I look at it and it's just a joke because it's only one, so it's just expressing in all these different ways, and so it's not like you've said something good and he said something profound. It's like the whole thing's profound, and it's all quite brilliant. And I think like what you're saying about the, like in, I don't, what were we saying? Relationships and like when there's no, when the self, this idea of a personal me and a you is sort of diminished, there can still be some sort of thoughts, but there's this energetic explosion, like it's the relationship take a whole new expression, and it's just unfathomable. It's like an explosion of energy, and it's like it's cosmic. It expands, it contracts, it moves, it sways, it explodes, it goes quiet. It's like wow, and you're just part of the show. It's like the most incredible. There's no more worry about married or not married or divorced. Or it's like it takes care of itself in a most miraculous, beautiful way. And that's all I got to say.
That's beautiful. That's it. Yes.
But the real question is there room for the for non-duality in the AFL, Dino? Obviously not.
Yeah, I have a couple of comments. Did you want to?
No, it's finished.
A couple of comments from people who are with us, and Bob wanted to say something. And you don't need it. You have the mic.
Oh.
Just speak.
Well, keep it simple. It's just leave it in its absoluteness. And then we start stories about it, trying to find out this, that and the other. But does the sperm suffuse with that intelligence energy, knowing what to do? Is that going to argue, should it be like this or like that or the other? And the ovum the same? They naturally spontaneously know what to do. And life comes from that. More life comes from it. So all this relationship is the problem, relative to. No relationship is just allowed to be as it is in its natural merging. Well, things will happen and argue and all the rest of it, and that will go on. But leave it as it is, without the story. Things work out, but then we put this conceptual image on it and get into all sorts of differentiate arguments about it and things like that. But everything is perfectly resolved in the unborn mind. Why exchange the unborn for thought?
Yeah, we have a nice comment here from Ren, and that's a little image of a bee. So, just bee, a bee. Bzz. See the bee? That's from Ren. And British Julia says, you only have to watch your mind. Say, I'll diet tomorrow, and then it reaches for a cake instead. That's the relationship between the concepts and reality. Maureen says, so beautiful. Presence awareness prior to thought, words, concepts. The unified love and care freely unfolding right now. So much love underlying. And Gilbert, the word because is used very often. Being is spontaneous. Being has no cause that we can discover. In our rumblings we use the word because, and yet it is never the actuality. Great point. Yeah. And Maureen, noticing neutrality, noticing neutrally the impulse to be special in some form or another, such as having the answer, getting it, being special. And Ram says, awareness doesn't give a shit about your desires or attractions or aversions for that matter. Laughing out loud. Yeah, space embraces everything. Whatever the behavior is, socially accepted or not accepted, is whatever it is. And there is all the religions unison say do not harm, as if you really had much saying about it. Because you touch your face and you harm thousands of beings, that are crippled, some of them, and you may say things that will be heard differently by other people, and you didn't mean to harm, but they harm themselves because their conditioning and their past make them hear something else. So of course, if you identify from that broken, crippled, deficient, unlovable little concept of me, and you feel the sense of oneness with life, and you are fulfilled and you are happy and you're free from desires, the idea of harming consciously doesn't really arise, because you project what you experience. If there is a joy here, that's what you tend to project outside. You see the joy and you love basically reflect that same love that you are in the world. The beauty stands out. That is what is being perceived. Hurt people. People who are hurt, they look for hurting. Oh, you cheat on me, I'll cheat on you. But people who do not hurt, there is no attraction, there's nothing that doing harm can ever give you, because really it is a projection. The world is projected. And I'm using the word because, which Gilbert just pointed out is not ideal, because things do not have a cause. That's the explanation of because, and that's a good point. Yet it's a helpful pointer too, when you see that this brings you to the reality of the oneness, and you see the behavior aiming at achieving something in particular, because often those behaviors are to social behaviors are to gain security or approval or something for the body. And if someone misbehaves or doesn't really oblige to those behaviors, like let's say, my husband cheats on me, he shouldn't do it. He doesn't, but
Hey Bob.
I'll give me a medal. This age.
I say I won't comment. So all medals are yours. So really, it is that simple. It is that simple. That going into the story about any situation is really just moving away from the truth of that situation, moving away from a direct experience of a buzzing life dancing itself. And going to the story often brings up the uneasiness and the judgment, because the story is always not good enough. There always could be something better. Like no matter what the story, what the interpretation of the situation, this computer here, this construct is designed to get things better, to seek for something bigger, better, grander. Even if you have perfect relationship, and instead of enjoying that perfect relationship, you go and narrate about it, then this computer will come up with the notion how it can improve further, and you start seeking further and missing out on what is, because this is what it is designed for. That is the designer's idea, that this one is to ensure that the whole body-mind structure gets the best deal, gets the most security, the best condition, the most pleasure. But following it blindly and really just being a slave to that is a life of a misery. It is a life of a slavery and a misery. And seeing it as a function and letting it be used when it is required, when it is useful, and letting it rest and be ignored when it's not useful. That's the life of freedom. But nobody lives that life of freedom. It's the freedom living itself when it rests in itself. rather than completely identified with that advisor here, that seeking creature, that software which constantly look for better options. Just knowing it for what it is. Yes, Lindsay?
So there was something that you just said there that triggered something here. I was recently at a birth of a baby, a new baby. It was this little one had a water birth, and this baby's cord snapped at the time of birth. And there was a bit of, blood loss, and we had to. The baby was very pale and had very fast heart rate, and we did all the things to stabilize the little being, the body. And then in the days after the birth, this little being, and this body was holding a lot of tension, like this tension in the body. And so we kind of brought our attention to just really be here now, like really be here now, knowing. So there was myself, the mother and the father and the baby. So we created this space to just drop in as the presence itself, like here, right here. And we brought just full attention to the little baby. And our movements had to slow right down, because the state is pure, unconditioned awareness. Well, slightly conditioned at this point, but pure, unconditioned awareness, holding tension in the body, right? So we held this space, and we allowed the baby to unwind. Like the intelligence itself has the capacity to heal, to unwind, to integrate, and then to move as one, as that oneness. But if that is overlaid and overlaid and overlaid through fast movements, through the baby not having a chance to actually what's the word I'm looking for? For the intelligence itself to have the chance to kind of unwind and do that repair work that's needed, then that becomes the felt experience of something not quite right in the body-mind system. And so as the human being develops, then the psyche that then kicks in at around 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, the sense of me-ness, starts to develop a preference for good feelings and bad feelings. And so, as in my own experience, so as one develops, as the human being develops, then this idea that I am separate seems to kick in even more when the lived experience in the body is of pain, of discomfort, of sensations that are too much, that feel overwhelming. And so we lose this understanding or this capacity to be able to soften and be with the experiences that the mind decides that are not okay. And so we develop a preference, and even this whole non-duality thing, like when I first started investigating, I was so addicted to the bliss, to the pleasure, to the sense of that came with this understanding, but I did not want to experience the sense of the mind would label maybe loneliness, the mind would then label discomfort, whatever you want to call those sensations in the body that are less desirable. And when you take the labels off, it is all just energy. And that doesn't go away. FYI, it doesn't. It's part of the human experience. It's the whole kit and caboodle. And when we realize that the preference for this over that is the suffering, then we're onto something. We're like, oh, okay. So if there's a capacity to recognize that what is being experienced right now is none other than who I am as the experience itself, then all of a sudden we are in the river with the sensation rather than separating ourselves out from it. And that's what I saw with this little baby. This little baby, it was like he was able to unwind something and now is breastfeeding beautifully. The tension is more released from his little body. And there's just, that the system aligns somehow. That there's an ironing out of the blocks and the holding patterns that then become the resistance of me eventually as we get older. And I feel like I'm focusing on you and I'm not meaning to. So I wanted to share that because, Thank you. Yeah, gosh.
Joseph, you must be a powerful being indeed. The whole meeting has been focused on your questions that you've posed.
I might say something.
I just wanted to say that
It's all boiled down, let it rest in its uncontrived singularity.
Exactly, just let it rest.
Rest.
Uncontrived Buddha mind. Yeah, I love that. I love that idea where a thought may arise, but then it just doesn't come into fruition. Just is as it is.
Go on, Joseph. Thank you.
Joseph is the last word.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's the last. I was just because there's a lot of things came up, which was funny. Cheating came up and this, and it's quite interesting because I know, as far as I understand, it's a story, and Bob knows I spoke about a woman I met, and that's why I actually came here to this meeting, because she was married, not me, and of course she was cheating as well with me, and I stepped out of the situation, and she's doing a course right now this weekend. A personality course, which I did before, and I wanted her to do it. And it was quite interesting because yesterday she spoke to me, and it was about authenticity. And I spoke with this about in the beginning. Now, I got aware that even though I wanted to understand what she went through, why everything happens, of course it's in the mind. And I asked her all these important questions, or to me important questions, whether how she proceed her relationships, if she had breaks or not, or if she has done it before. And she told me yesterday that she had to lie about this to me when I asked this question because of fear she had. And somehow I had this sensation yesterday, and I don't know what it was, but it wasn't, as you're saying, it was a sensation, but when you said it, I just came up, or it was a sensation of, I can't name the word, but it wasn't a positive one. I wasn't as happy. But also, and so that's why I came up with this today. So, and I think that's it. I was just trying to get it more clear of what's happening. And
did it happen? You get more clarity or no?
Yeah, I have to let it set down today. But that's what came up this morning, and that's why I brought it up. And
You're looking for clarity without something to be easy to be
Yeah, clarity is when you go to the heart, when you stop thinking. That's
Yeah.
where the clarity is, because
Yeah.
you're clear that you are.
And it's funny,
Everything
last week I
else-
was the totally opposite. I
Yeah.
was like very in love,
Mhm.
and today I was that surprised. And I was very surprised I couldn't even pick that up. I mean, that was her behaving pattern, surviving pattern,
Yeah.
which made it so authentic at the time that I was then so surprised. And I'm very glad she's doing that, because it helps her so much now as well. And she is spiritual as well, so that's why I'm coming here. So,
I think we have to wind it up, but I just wanted to say one little thing.
Please, yeah.
I remember I had a relationship question for Bob like a while ago, right? And I sat with Bob, and I was talking about all this stuff, and he just looked at me, and he said, "What some enchanted evening," and he sang a song to me. That was his response, but it blew everything just blew everything up. Like there was no question, there was nothing to be resolved. It was resolved. It was like the most magnificent response. I know he's had a few good ones, but thank you.
Yeah, I have a couple of comments also. I'll just very quickly read them. There is one from Mirella. Bob and Kat, do stories still come up for you, and letting them come and go unattached? Yeah, luckily they do. Absolutely, we enjoy them to the fullest. Don't we love the little story how we met? Oh my gosh, it's gorgeous. Of course, yes, we can watch a good movie too. Can leave this question for the next time. Yeah, some enchanted evening story too. And thank you for lovely meeting, says Mirella. And Tanya says, thank you all so much for such profound beauty expressing today. Thought is not trying to understand, but resonating very deeply. Love you all. And Amarnath sends love and prefer everything or nothing. British Julia says, thanks for showing up in the dream. Amarnath, Mirella, thoughts come but no thinker. Story goes but no characters and truth in that or storyteller. No relation between story and I. No story, no words, no thought, no I. No difference between thoughts and silence. And Mirella says, beautiful Amarnath, thank you for your reminder. And that's it. And thank you everyone.
Thank you.
And
Thank you very much.
thanks so much.